All right, joining me for a race around the world with a few international issues. My international panel tonight, of course, Sky News contributor Kosha Carter, former Labor MP Michael Danby. Michael, start with you. We know Joe Biden will be in Israel, perhaps towards the end of the week. They're saying Thursday. I suspect they'll guard the security a bit closely. There is talk, though, that he's not just going to send a signal of support, he's also going to try and get Bibi Netanyahu to wind back on ongoing full-scale war against Hamas. Will that work?
No. I've spoken to people in the National Unity Government, and right across the political spectrum, military operations are going to be done to remove Hamas. More and more stuff is emerging of what happened in those terrible days on the 7th of October, and Joe Biden might be able to restrain them in doing this or that operation, but it's going to go ahead. And the Americans will try and not get involved with their aircraft carriers off the coast of Lebanon if Hezbollah gets involved. But there's a very big danger. The Russians have S-400 anti-aircraft missiles. If the Israelis are flying over Lebanon to suppress the huge number of missiles, much bigger than Hamas, coming into Israel, then if the Russians get involved, it's a really big problem.
Talk to me about this call from a former Hamas leader to have a global day of jihad. We know two Swedish tourists have been killed in Belgium, connected to Islamic State. That's what the person involved says, the terror suspect says. We had a Chechen kill a teacher in France, again, Islamist type behaviour. It feels like we're back where we were a few years ago.
It does. I think these atrocities from last weekend are sort of seen to be lighting a fuse of something that maybe has been simmering for a while, placated for a while, but never quite gone away. And I think we've talked about this, Peta, in previous contexts as well, that one consequence of immigration at the scale at which has happened in the last half century in most of the Western world is that you don't know. You're importing people with different allegiances, value systems, philosophies. And when this fuse gets lit, those things bubble up to the surface. And we're seeing that with protests and rallies and even acts of terror, potentially. I think the other dynamic at play is just the cultural shift that we're just in. For a lot of people, everything is viewed now through this prism of oppressed and oppressor, colonizer, decolonizer. And so every issue in the world is getting stuffed into that prism. And you put all that together, it's a bit of a perfect storm for, I think, unfortunately, these kinds of things now, more to come.
The president aside the US, how's this playing out with the Congress? I mean, we're on the cusp of really getting into a US election. How is this being seen and acted upon in the US?
Well, we're not even sure that Jim Jordan will have a majority to be the Speaker. America is adrift. Matt Gaetz blew up the Congress and he had no plan. There's urgent appropriations for Israel, Ukraine and Taiwan. What if the Chinese attack Taiwan during this period when the Americans are on the back foot in the Middle East and in Europe? There's no appropriations. Honestly, this is, you worry about America, and I was astonished to hear that some of the Gates people were saying that Qatar, which is hosting the Iranian foreign minister and the heads of Hamas staying at the Four Seasons Hotel in Doha, Peter, that America shouldn't be involved in sanctioning them because it would be getting involved overseas. I mean, talk about nuts. America is the leader of the free world. I'm not sure that Sleepy Joe is up to it, but at least he's got the right sentiments. But we need the American Congress too.
Hey, just quickly, we had a change of government in New Zealand, Labor out, Nationals in. Does that mean we're going to get rid of the Ardern, Green, woke legacy as well?
Seems like a little bit, for sure. And I know the coalition has a faction with 11 seats or so that's even more to the right, which will pull the centre of gravity in that direction. But I think a lot of what the Ardern administration did is deep-seated, so it's not going to happen overnight. And I'm sure they're going to be met with resistance, just like right-wing governments are, I think, in much of the Western world.
All strength around, though, because a lot of that stuff comes here. Thanks, Kosha. Thank you, Michael.